I'm Dan Hunt, and this is Up Close and Personal. We are live at the Aria Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada at World CryptoCon. My guest right now, Mike Winston, who is the CEO? Chairman of Private Jetcoin. We're going to talk about a lot about Private Jetcoin because airplanes are my passion. But before we talk about Private Jetcoin, let's talk a little bit about Mike and where Mike came from. You grew up in Atlanta, Georgia.
Correct. I did. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I went to high school in Southern California, a little bit of culture shock, and then came back east for college.
And then went back east for college.
I did. Yeah.
So you just took my whole interview out.
Oh,
and that's okay.
I stole the thunder. I should have just said about Atlanta.
About Atlanta, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Atlanta and growing up in Atlanta.
Yeah.
You grew up in a conservative Jewish home.
Correct.
Where you split your time between regular school and Hebrew school.
It was a combined school, so it was half day Hebrew, half day English.
Half day Hebrew, half day English.
Yeah.
Was that tough as a kid growing up in that environment, or did you live in a community where it was just everybody that way?
I was relatively sheltered as a kid.
Okay.
So, there was really no prejudice that I experienced directly, and, it was a pretty bucolic kind of pastoral experience growing up in Atlanta in the mid-'80s.
You didn't just move from the East Coast to the West Coast. You didn't just go west.
Yeah.
At 14 years old, you moved to Beverly Hills, 90210. You went from a half-day school in Hebrew, half in English, to the most famous school in the world. There was a TV show about this school.
Yeah.
It had to be a little bit of culture shock.
Yeah, I showed up on the first day of school in fluorescent clothing while everybody else was sporting Armani and driving a BMW. At least the freshmen were driving, but in any event, they were far better dressed than I was. So
did you get along with the kids? Were they accepting at that time? I mean, in the 90s at Beverly Hills High School, could be tough.
Yeah. Well, from a cultural perspective, there was a relatively large Jewish community in Beverly Hills also.
Right.
So that was a nice thing. And I moved in next door to a kid who also happened to be of the same faith and who had grown up in the Beverly Hills Unified School District, so he provided me a lot in the way of instant friendship and social acceptance. A very lucky thing. It could have been very different.
Growing up, did you have a hero?
I'd say my grandfather, actually. He's an obstetrician who was constantly being called out at night to do God's work. It's just, definitely him.
Well, you just say he was called out to doing God's work. What does that mean? Like he would go to the hospital, or?
Yeah, he was delivering babies all the time, and sometimes in pretty bad areas.
Right. He was also one of the first obstetricians to bring an African-American woman into Grace Hospital, right?
Yeah, well, he was an obstetrician at Grady Hospital, and I remember vividly him telling me stories of how, access to obstetric care for African-American women in Atlanta, Georgia in the 60s and 50s was not so great, and he just wasn't having that, and so he just saw patients, and that was kind of the end of it for him, and that was, I thought, a good example.
That example to lead you to the drive that you've had throughout your life and career?
Well, he has a work ethic that was a great example. So I've tried to take the work ethic of a dedicated obstetrician in everything I've done, which is more or less misplaced sometimes, but there are worse fates, I guess.
So from Beverly Hills High School, I always like to ask the question, was there anybody, a teacher in high school or maybe even a professor in college, that really affected your life, that really, helped you along or helped you make decisions to move forward?
Yeah, Larry Stees. And a close second, my guidance counselor, Joseph Hooker. But Larry Stees was a football coach and algebra teacher. And early on in my academic career, math wasn't so easy for me. Later on, I got my sea legs in the subject. But Coach Stees had me on the bubble between a B and a C. And I think it was my sophomore year. It was really close, and he gave me the B. And then the next semester, I improved and strengthened. But for an overachiever, that was really important.
That B, because the difference between a B and a C at that level.
It
may be the difference from you going to UC Berkeley or Cornell.
Yeah,
you got into an Ivy League school.
I did. I was fortunate. I got into the summer college program.
Right.
And then I went, to the undergrad. I was fortunate to be admitted as an undergraduate also. So, yeah, I did.
And again, another culture shock. So, you went from the east, from Atlanta, really that's the south.
Yeah.
And then you came to Beverly Hills, which everybody knows, 90210.
Yeah.
And then you're going back to Cornell to the northeast. Wow, you really hit all the quadrants of the country there.
Yeah.
How did that go for you, getting into Cornell, and didn't you start out with psychology?
I did, yeah. I had done well in summer college in psychology, and so I figured I would apply into the same auspices, and I had a natural interest in it. Ultimately, I wound up majoring in economics, which is sort of related to psychology in some way. I guess everything is sort of related to psychology.
Exactly.
To be honest about it. But yeah, it was a culture shock to go back east where everyone was from Long Island or somewhere.
Okay, so I want you to take a second.
Sure.
And I want you to think back to your senior year of high school. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're at a football game. Beverly Hills High School had a pretty good football program.
It was okay.
And you had fun. It was a social event. Mm-hmm. What did you want to be when you grew up? Where did you want to go?
I had no idea. I had this philosophy that I should always be making the best plan at the time, wherever I was, to take me to the limit of my ability. And if I just kept doing that, eventually I'd wind up in the right place for myself. Or I guess another way, I could rise to my level of incompetence. I'm not sure exactly. I still think about that sometimes.
I'm not sure about incompetence, because when you left school, and you did study abroad for a whole year or a semester.
Yeah, I spent a year at the London School of Economics while I was an undergraduate at Cornell.
Okay. And you came back and you worked on Wall Street.
I did.
But again, you didn't just work on Wall Street. You kind of excelled. You managed to hedge fund. How much money did you have under?
Well, myself and a colleague, before I started my own business, we managed $1 billion or so for Millennium Partners.
That would be $1 billion with a B, folks, with a B, okay? $1 billion. Did you have a hard time sleeping sometimes when the markets were up and down? And, there's $1 billion out there. Got to be a lot of pressure. Got to be a lot of thoughts when your head hits that pillow at night. Yeah. Tell me what that's like.
Well, it's about your stress point. So if you do any job, like if you fly an airplane, or if you're a surgeon, or you do anything that it's really important that it goes well, and there's generally a checklist that you run, you begin over time to develop a higher stress point. And that's what managing a large amount of money is about. It's about a stress point, and also a very good wingman. Martin Demindra, who bore a lot of that stress, not just me. I had to throw in his name. Oh, him so much.
That's okay. We love him.
If he watches this, he needs to hear me mention it. It's important.
We'll make sure that we'll tag him in the bottom down there too. Okay. That stress that you had. Tell me about what you did to relieve that stress, or how did you get through some of that stress?
Exercise is one way. It's a kind of a typical answer, but it's the truth, because so much of being beyond your stress point is a physiological moment. It's when your professional life crosses into the jungle primeval, and the only way to get back out of the jungle is to run out of it.
Right.
Almost literally, I think. As exercise. Not just run screaming from the office. That doesn't work.
Now, somewhere in that realm, in that time frame, you met your wife.
I did.
Tell me how you met her.
I sat down next to her at the Pier Hotel at a Rosh Hashanah dinner where both of our families were present. It was a pretty wholesome meeting on the whole, I'd say.
And how did that bloom out?
Well, I sat down next to her and she asked me to move, and I didn't feel particularly compelled to move, and I said, I'm okay here. And then, a year later we were married.
You said something to me earlier today that just really touched my heart. You said your wife is the spiritual leader of your family. And I'm going to put a little plug in here too, because your family just got not a little bit bigger, but a lot bigger all at once. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah, it's true. I do believe that she is the spiritual center of our family, no doubt. We had twins 10 months ago, and we're both in our early 40s, and when you have twins in your early 40s, that doesn't make you believe in God, and also ask for God's help. Then that you're a unique individual. But yeah.
Tell me why. Why? What drives you? What's your why? What's behind Jeff? What is behind you? What makes you go?
What's behind me? My patience, but I'm not a doctor. So I have a sense that I have an ability to do something that's helpful or constructive for people, and that it's my obligation to make sure that I deliver that to my very best. It's just that simple.
You started a new venture.
I did.
And we've talked about it a little bit because airplanes are, my passion. I've flown. I got my license at 16, and I've flown ever since then.
That's impressive.
So, private jet coin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tell me about it. What's that about? How does it work?
Private jet coin are basically just sky miles for private jets. But no one's going to take your sky miles for your jets unless you actually have jets. Wouldn't it be nice if we could all just invent jet money? We're working in combination with the third largest operator of aircraft in the United States, Gamma Aviation. Excellent organization with a tremendous safety track record. They actually run the entire Wheels Up fleet, if you've heard of the Wheels Up organization, also a fast-growing company. And HondaJet, who has a remarkable breakthrough aircraft. There are about 100 in service today. They believe in our vision. We certainly believe in theirs. We'll sell you 50 hours on a HondaJet as a fraction, or rather as a block hour. Or alternatively, you can come and book any one of the 4,000 jets available in the United States to travel on. And we'll accept any form of exchange-traded cryptocurrency, or of course our own coin, the private jet coin.
So you have your own coin, but you'll also take pretty much any cryptocurrency that's out there.
Yeah, if it's exchange traded and we can get it to fiat and pay for jet fuel with it, we'll take it.
Okay, well, how do you handle the taxes then on that? Do you put that back on the customer, or do you guys take that as part of your expense at that point?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you are a recipient of private jet coins as a promotion and we sell those private jet coins for you and give you cash, then we'll hand you a tax form at the same time.
That's a taxable event.
Correct. If you come to us with a cryptocurrency, we're not going to take proprietary risk. This goes back to my trading background. We'll take agency. So basically, we'll sell it for you, and then we'll provide you a tax form recognizing the sale, and it's up to you to determine your basis of support for tax.
Good. So you have to return. Okay. That makes perfect sense. HondaJet. What a great company, what a great airplane.
Yeah.
Very quiet. They have a new engine design where they're putting them up and out. Where did that relationship come from?
The HondaJet relationship came from Gamma Aviation, actually. They are now operating 2 HondaJets, one in Chicago, one in New York. They'll have a third one on the West Coast pretty soon. And they recommended it because we talked in depth with them about our program. And it turns out that when you look at the NTSB and FAA data, the ideal plane is really somewhere between an Embraer Phenom 100 and a Phenom 300, but the HondaJet does the mission in between, which is a statistical part of the watermelon, if you will, but at half the cost of a Phenom 300.
Right.
So it's astonishing when you think about what that could mean.
Not only half the cost of the airplane, but half of the operational cost as well.
Yeah, the direct operating costs on a HondaJet are cheaper than a King Air. They're $1,000 an hour, which just still blows my mind.
How can people get information, get this coin? Is it out there available today, or is this something that you're working on and going to bring out?
Sure. So we've been in development for about 8 months now. We're selling equity in the company here under Reg D.
Okay.
It's not solicitation. Consult your financial advisor. And then
Spoken from the hedge fund guy.
Yeah, we respect the rule of law. And then there'll be a token sale after the conference, which will flip the switch on.
And you'll just flip it on, you'll do a token sale, and then you'll be off to the races.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of interest in what you're doing out there? Have you talked to a lot of people, and do you feel like you have some inside customers ready to roll on this?
Yeah, we do have some customers lined up who are interested in the HondaJet, who are interested in actually acquiring other jets. It's amazing where the conversation takes you when you get into people and their travel needs and their passion for it. Or just need for it, really, in some cases. And what was the rest of your question?
Just about how many clients are out there for it. You feel you have a built-in
I was
client
thinking
base.
through the client list and when you asked that question because I'm so in startup mode. But yeah, we've got some takers. There's been a $200 billion really oil strike in some sense in the cryptocurrency in the past 3 years, and it has endowed people with wealth that they'd like to express. And so the Honda Jet's a great way to start to do it responsibly. You're not going to blow through all your money with 50 hours on a Honda Jet if you've got millions in crypto. And you can learn about the industry, experience it, and do something sensible.
Well, let's talk. I'm not trying to be 2020, but let me ask you a tough question.
Please do.
Why in crypto? Why not just go out and take a credit card, take the black card, have your own card like some of the other models that are in the marketplace today?
2 reasons. One is that if anyone's going to interchange points with us, then it needs to be done securely and transparently because it's not one airline that'll ultimately need to accept these points. It's all the guys who operate 4,000 private jets.
Right.
And also, if we do have the privilege of interchanging with airline points at a point in time, and there's more than one blockchain project that's actually working on that right now that we're in contact with, then we also need to be secure and transparent. So that's one reason why you need a blockchain. It's because you don't have to persuade people of the authenticity of what you're doing. The second is speed. Right now, when you go to pay for a private jet with a credit card, there's a terrible problem with chargebacks.
Right.
People fly and they have remorse and then they
I can't afford it.
should have done that,
Right.
Maybe and so crypto, within the irreversible nature of certain blockchains, help solve for that. And in addition, oftentimes it'll take 24 hours for a wire to clear, even though it's same-day funds.
Right.
Or even longer with ACH, crypto is immediate, so it moves that.
It moves that time zone down. So if I called you up and said, I need to go to New York today.
Right.
You have a plane in LA, you could pop it over and boom, I'm off to New York.
So the rate limiting factor is just the logistics of the aircraft, not the processing of the payment.
Exactly.
And that's a big step forward.
Now, you are based in...
I'm based in Tel Aviv, Israel, and in New York. I go between the two.
You go between the two, and your family is in Israel right now.
Yes, they are.
Are they planning to come back, or are you planning to stay there?
Well, I'm the chairman of this company. I'm not the CEO.
Okay.
And my role is probably to facilitate the development of technology in Israel and the trade and to go back and forth with the United States. Our CEO, whose name I can't reveal right now,
Right.
Because he's a household name in private aviation, and will be joining us. He's in the U.S.
Okay.
So we'll be in both places, but partially because the FAA says you have to be in the U.S.
Right. So the FAA says you have to be here.
Yeah.
But your service, or I shouldn't say your service, a Honda Jet, can't make it from New York to Tel Aviv.
Well, now that's stopping. They have put a Honda Jet actually that's gone around the world. Believe it or not, with a 1,400 nautical mile range, you can stop enough times and go through the whole planet. But we're very committed to matching the right asset to the right mission.
Exactly.
And that's part of why we have a platform to access 1,000 jets and Hondas.
So, for more information on Private Jet Coin, you want to check out the link right below. And Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
I had a great time meeting and speaking with you today.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to it. Hey, what a great event. Look at this room. Isn't it something?
Unbelievable.
It's absolutely unbelievable. There's a couple Lambos in here. There's a Corvette over there. I just can't say enough about this CryptoCon event. And you know what? There's a great big party going downstairs, so I think maybe you and I should head over to it.
Okay.
Thank you all for watching tonight. This is Up Close and Personal. I'm Dan Hunt saying have a great rest of today and an even better day tomorrow.